191 Southern Pancakes. Auntie Zhao glared at Zhao Xing. You're spending money recklessly. I'm well fed. I don't lack anything and don't need you to buy anything. Zhao Xing took out a piece of pancake and stuffed it into Auntie Zhao's mouth as he said righteously, how can it be the same? Have you ever eaten pancakes made of flowers? Every place has its own delicacies. You have to try them. Tasting the delicacies of different places is a pleasurable experience. These are all kinds of wild fungi. They've already been processed and dried. Using them to make soup is beneficial for your health. Also, what you ate just now was pancakes made of flowers. This is beef jerky. You have to finish the pancakes in time. The rest can be preserved in the shade for a long time. Don't be reluctant to eat them. You keep saving up food until they expire. Of course, Zhao Xing didn't only bring these things. Auntie Zhao watched as Zhao Xing introduced these specialties to her and felt a little emotional. Her son had grown up and knew how to take care of her now. Zhao Xing said so much because he wanted his mother to know that he could eat these things very often. Now, only the two of them were left at home. He was in the army now, so he had enough food to eat. It was just that his mother always wanted to leave the good things for him, but when he returned, he wouldn't be able to eat that much. When the food went bad and had to be thrown away, it would be a waste. Auntie Zhao knew her son's intentions. Regardless of whether she could do it or not, she still had to assure him, all right, I'll eat it. Don't worry. What do you think about that young lady just now? She's beautiful and capable. If you can marry such a wife, I'll be able to rest assured even if I die tomorrow. Zhao Xing was a little unhappy when he heard this. Mom, what nonsense are you talking about? Don't talk about death all day long. I haven't shown you enough filial piety. I still have to be filial to you. Zhao Xing's brother had already sacrificed himself for the country. At the mention of her eldest son, Auntie Zhao fell silent. When Zhao Xing realized this, he felt so guilty that he wanted to slap himself. He hurriedly changed the topic. Mom, hurry up and put these things away. After Auntie Zhao's thoughts were interrupted, she came back to her senses. There's no hurry. It's rare for you to come back, so you have to visit the families of the elders in the village in the next 2 days. I'll split the things first. You can go to Yu Bing's house later. She helped me pick loquats just now. You have to give her some thank you gifts. With that, she hurriedly distributed a portion. Give these to her. She lives in the small courtyard beside the Xiao family's 3 siblings. Zhao Xing felt a little strange when he heard this. As an intellectual, Yu Bing didn't live in the dormitory building, but lived outside on her own. However, Zhao Xing wasn't a nosy person. Moreover, he could tell that his mother wanted to matchmake them, so he wouldn't ask further, lest his mother became more enthusiastic. Although he had no interest in Yu Bing, he didn't want to anger his mother, so he agreed. In any case, he could visit Zhao Xing. After thinking about it, he took out another specialty and set off for the end of the village. Yu Bing had just arrived home for dinner when she saw Zhao Xing enter. Hello, miss you. These are some specialties my mother asked me to bring over. Thank you for taking care of her. Just now, before Zhao Xing came, Auntie Zhao kept nagging him about how diligent Yu Bing was and how Yu Bing took care of her. She also took out some pastries that Yu Bing had given her previously and insisted that Zhao Xing try them too, so Zhao Xing thanked Yu Bing sincerely. Yu Bing took the specialties in embarrassment. Auntie Zhao is too polite. Actually, she took good care of us, so I just helped her when I saw her sometimes. She suddenly thought of the snacks she had made recently. They could serve as return gifts, so she hurriedly ran into the kitchen to pack some. Commander Zhao, these are some soft cakes I made myself. Although they're not worth much, they can fill your stomach when you're hungry. Zhao Xing took it politely and left. As Yu Bing looked at the flour pancakes in her hand, she suddenly had an idea. She thought of the flatbread desserts in the south. Transportation wasn't very convenient now. The delicacies that are rare in the north could be the focus of their factory. Their novelties alone could attract many people. After Zhao Xing left Yu Bing's house, he went straight to Zhao Xing's house. Zhao Xing was about to close the door and take a nap when he saw Zhao Xing suddenly appear at the door. He shouted happily, Brother Xing. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 192 Little Overlord. Zhao Xing did not say a word. He immediately threw a punch at Zhao Xing. Seeing this, Zhao Xing hurriedly took a step back and turned around. Zhao Xing quickly raised his leg and kicked Zhao Xing, while Zhao Xing used his arm to block Zhao Xing's kick in time. The two of them exchanged moves one after another. Although Zhao Xing only attacked with one hand, Zhao Xing was still at a disadvantage after more than 10 rounds. Zhao Xing retracted his hand and smiled. Not bad. It seems that you've practiced the martial arts techniques I taught you. You're stronger than before and are almost taller than me. Zhao hugged Xiaoxing's shoulder and sized him up. Without special training, anyone who could last more than 10 rounds under an outstanding special forces soldier like Zhao wasn't an ordinary person. After Xiaoxing received Zhao praise, he smiled and touched his inch-long hair in embarrassment. I'm far inferior to you. I was thinking of learning a few more moves when you came back. When Zhao brother joined the army, Zhao wasn't even 10 years old yet. Every time Zhao brother returned home, Zhao would say that he wanted to learn boxing from him. Over time, his boxing skills became famous among the children in the village. At that time, Xiaoxing was only a 6 or 7-year-old child. When he saw how capable Zhao was, he followed behind Zhao all day long and clamored to learn martial arts from him. When Zhao was young, he was an aloof loner. However, he could not withstand Xiaoxing's pestering, so their friendship began from that time. Zhao handed the specialties in his hand to Xiaoxing and teased, "I'll be back for half a month this time. As long as you're not afraid of hardship, I'll let you practice until you get sick of it." Not only was Xiaoxing not afraid, but he was also very excited. Ever since he took over Brother Chang's job, it was inevitable that he would encounter dangerous situations. Fighting was even more unavoidable. It was all thanks to his good martial arts skills that he was able to survive. Otherwise, he would have been beaten up countless times already. Now, his reputation for being able to fight helped him avoid a lot of trouble. The two of them entered the house to catch up. Auntie Zhao waited for the entire afternoon. When she finally saw her son enter the house, she smiled as she went forward. "Looks like you and Yubing hit it off. You two chatted for the entire afternoon." Zhao said to his mother helplessly, "Mom, I went to Xiaoxing's house. I won't consider marriage for the time being." Auntie Zhao's expression froze. She thought that going to the Xiao family's house was in passing, but she did not expect that helping her give Yubing a gift was in passing. Seeing that Zhao did not understand her painstaking efforts, Auntie Zhao was so angry that she pinched her son's arm hard. "Rascal, good girls are targeted early on. While you still have a chance, hurry up and show off your assets." As for Yan Yin, her so-called fiance, after they heard Mrs. Yu's ambiguous words that day, many people already knew the real situation. Therefore, most of the villagers had already tacitly agreed that Yubing was not engaged, especially Gao Xian and Huang Yu, who had wanted to enter the factory through Yan Yin. At that time, in order to please Yan Yin, the two of them had even helped him cook for the entire day. Therefore, now, the two of them would mock Yan Yin from time to time, saying that he was delusional and wanted to rely on a woman to climb up the ladder, but failed. Yan Yin was so angry that he could not even eat, especially when he saw that Feng Kai, his roommate, was doing well in the food factory. He felt even more indignant. Yan Yin could not figure out why Yubing treated him like this. Even if the two of them did not have much interaction in the past, they grew up in the same neighborhood and were neighbors who lived in the same building. At this moment, Feng Kai was packing his luggage in the dormitory and preparing to take a taxi back to City H to look for orders. As Yan Yin looked at Feng Kai coldly, he was even more indignant about Yubing ignoring him. If Yubing was willing to be with him, Feng Kai would not be the chief of the sales department. The more he thought about it, the more he gritted his teeth. Feng Kai inadvertently turned around and saw Yan Yin's expression. His hand that was holding the clothes paused. He knew that Yan Yin was just jealous of him. Hence, he threw the clothes onto the bed and glared at Yan Yin fiercely. "Why? Are you unhappy with me?" When Yan Yin saw Feng Kai's fierce expression, he immediately retracted his gaze and lay down. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 193 Chop Wood. Yan Yin did not dare to have any objections in front of Feng Kai, but inwardly, he cursed Feng Kai for being a boorish person who only knew how to solve problems with force. He was a civilized person and would not stoop to the level of such a brawny person. Feng Kai despised men who relied on women, so after knowing what kind of person Yan Yin was, he ignored him. If Yan Yin had responded to him like a man just now, Feng Kai wouldn't have felt so disdainful. When Feng Kai saw Yan Yin's reaction, Feng Kai smirked. He thought in disdain that if a capable girl like Yubing liked such a man, it meant that all the men in the world were probably dead. Recently, Auntie Zhao liked to invite Yubing to her house whenever she had nothing to do. Yubing was confused. However, Yubing was really busy, and Auntie Zhao was too embarrassed to keep delaying Yubing's time, so Auntie Zhao decided to change her strategy. Yubing did not have time, but Zhao did. Auntie Zhao said to Zhao, who was chopping firewood, "Help Yubing pick firewood later." The two of them have been working hard for the entire day. They definitely don't have the strength to go to the mountain to pick tree branches. Zhao refused without thinking. "Mom, it's not suitable for me to go to a girl's home. Yubing lived with Jiang Chun. In addition, she was the one who took the initiative to mention this, so there was nothing inappropriate about it. Zhao Xing was just unwilling to do so. Auntie Zhao did not accept her son's excuse and said, "Those two young ladies often come to help me, especially you Bing. It's not easy for you to come back. You have to help me repay some favors." Zhao Xing chose to remain silent. It was not that he did not understand his mother. She had never liked owing favors. If others helped her, she would keep thinking about it until she returned the favor. Seeing that Zhao Xing was ignoring her, Auntie Zhao pretended to be sad. "I'm usually alone at home and no one talks to me. Only Yu Bing comes to accompany an old woman like me. Otherwise, I'd be so pitiful all alone." Auntie Zhao narrowed her eyes and secretly glanced at Zhao Xing. She realized that his originally expressionless face had softened a little, so she continued to keep up the act. "A lame old woman like me can't help her. Now that my son is back, I thought you could help me repay a favor. I didn't expect such a small request to be rejected." D. Zhao Xing saw Auntie Zhao wiping her tears with a handkerchief. His mother was such a tough woman. How could she cry over such a thing? Although Zhao Xing knew that his mother was definitely pretending, he still compromised in the end. He was a soldier who served the country and the people, but the only person he had neglected was his mother. However, he loved this job and the army. Although his mother did not blame him for leaving home and joining the army, the more understanding his mother was, the guiltier Zhao Xing felt every time he thought of how he had neglected his mother and left her all alone. It was rare for him to come home, and didn't he return to make his mother happy? "All right, I'll go." Auntie Zhao smiled smugly and urged, "Hurry up." After Zhao Xing went to the mountain to chop a large basket of firewood, he walked towards Yu Bing's house. Yu Bing and Jiang Chun had just gotten off work and returned home. "Miss you, Jiang Chun." Zhao Xing saw the two of them busy in the kitchen when he entered. Yu Bing and Jiang Chun stopped what they were doing and walked to the courtyard. Yu Bing smiled and greeted, "Commander Zhao, why are you free to come over today?" Zhao Xing rarely smiled at strangers, but he knew that he was a little scary when he did not smile. Hence, he smiled stiffly at the two of them. "My mother asked me to chop some firewood for you too." When Yu Bing and Jiang Chun saw Zhao Xing smile, they both felt that smiling didn't suit Zhao Xing. Yu Bing was a little confused when she heard Zhao Xing's words. Why did Auntie Zhao suddenly ask Zhao Xing to chop firewood for her? Hence, she hurriedly replied, "Auntie Zhao is always so polite. Hurry up and go back. We can chop it ourselves." Zhao Xing began to chop firewood in the courtyard. "Sometimes, I can't go home for an entire year. I'm really grateful that you guys are willing to spend time chatting with her. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much." 194 Flirtatious. Zhao Xing said these words from the bottom of his heart. His sincerity made it difficult for Yu Bing and Jiang Chun to refuse, but they decided to spend more time with Auntie Zhao in the future. Humans lived in groups, and they could tell that Auntie Zhao liked company. Zhao Xing planned to go home after work. The two of them tried their best to keep Zhao Xing for lunch. "There's no need to trouble yourselves. My mother cooked already. It's rare for me to come home, so I want to spend as much time with her as possible," Zhao Xing said seriously. When Yu Bing heard this, she could not ask him to stay anymore. After thanking him, she sent Zhao Xing out the door. Yan Yin, who had come to look for Yu Bing, happened to see this scene. In fact, he had seen it since Zhao Xing entered Yu Bing's house. When Yan Yin saw the military uniform, he guessed that he was the son of Auntie Zhao, who had recently returned home to visit his family. His name seemed to be Zhao Xing. Seeing Yu Bing smile at Zhao Xing, Yan Yin cursed softly, "Slut. You smile so happily at other men, but you're so cold to your fiance." Yan Yin came to look for Yu Bing today because he wanted to take the initiative to express his goodwill. He wanted to tell Yu Bing that he would fetch her water in the future. In the past, he did not persist. This time, Yan Yin planned to continue using this matter to get close to Yu Bing and curry favor with her. When Duan Mei left that day, she said in public that the marriage had to be discussed again, so it was not appropriate for him to consider himself Yu Bing's fiancé anymore. He was worried that his mother would not be able to deal with Duan Mei, so after some thought, he decided to start with Yu Bing. If he could give Yu Bing a good impression of him, he might be able to convince her to register their marriage and get rid of the betrothal. However, before he could express his determination to Yu Bing, Zhao Xing actually came with firewood. If he said he would help her carry water now, it would seem like he was imitating Zhao Xing and he wouldn't seem sincere at all. Yan Yin felt that he could neither advance nor retreat now. He hesitated until Yu Bing sent Zhao Xing out of the door and returned home to close the door before returning to the dormitory resentfully. As the saying went, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Yu Yin, who followed them, saw this scene. Seeing that two men wanted to curry favor with Yu Bing, Yu Yin cursed softly, "Slut. You already have a fiance, but you're still flirting with Xiaoxing all day long. Now, you won't even let go of the soldier who has just returned to visit his family. He has only been back for a few days, but you've already seduced him." The more Yu Yin scolded, the more ferocious her expression became. *TCH. Actually, Yu Yin did not have much feelings for Xiaoxing now. After all, good looks could not put bread on the table. She already had enough of the hard life of rural people. She definitely could not marry someone from the countryside. Otherwise, her life would be ruined. However, this did not stop her from resenting the fact that Yu Bing and Xiaoxing seemed to have become closer. Thinking of how her mother had said before returning to the city that Yu Bing refused to subsidize her family, Yu Yin felt that it was even more unfair. She muttered, not only did such a person become the captain of the intellectual youths, but she also became the factory director. I have to think of a way to help my family punish her. Feng Kai returned with orders from 3 supply and marketing companies. In addition, Yu Bing had obtained a few orders from the county city. The production line in the factory would not stop for the next month. Yu Bing made 3 combinations of orders for the egg yolk pastry and snowflake pastry this time. They were all food combinations for employees' benefits. First, the packaging was simplified. The snacks were wrapped in square brown paper, then tied with thin twine to make a double-cross knot. Finally, the food factory's logo was pasted on the packaging surface. The daily benefits given to employees were not as good as holiday gifts. The packaging had to be nice. However, if it affected the price, the purchasing department would decisively choose the cheaper one. After all, compared to the procurement requirements during holidays, daily benefits were more practical. The first was a simple egg yolk pastry set, which cost 6 yuan a pack and was priced at 1.75 yuan. The second was a snowflake crisp set that cost 20 yuan a pack and was priced at 0.95 yuan. There was also a mixed set of 4 egg yolk pastries with 10 snowflake crisps that was priced at 1.7 yuan. Yu Bing had received a total of 2,330 orders for the 3 sets. Among them, the mixed set had the most orders. Coupled with the bulk orders Feng Kai received, there were 13,058 egg yolk pastries and 24,610 snowflake crisps to be produced this time. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 195 wanting a car. Previously, they were only testing the market response, so not much had been made. Therefore, the oven used was a simple version made of a pot lid and an iron plate made of yellow soil. For the production of small batches, it was enough, but for a large batch, it might have to work non-stop for 24 hours to be in time for the delivery. Therefore, 2 days ago, Yu Bing had already gotten someone to make 2 large ovens made of yellow soil in the empty space beside the window of the factory. They were already ready for use. Yu Bing divided the 7 chefs into 2 groups. Because the egg yolk pastries needed to be roasted, the production process was relatively complicated. Therefore, 3 of them were in charge of making snowflake crisps, and 4 were in charge of the egg yolk pastries. There was no use for the disinfection room for the time being. Yu Bing also temporarily transferred the disinfection workers to the mobility team. The 11 workers helped the chefs do some chores. Yu Bing asked Xiaoxing to bring Wu Qing to various places to buy salted egg yolks and eggs. The others could be bought from the supply company, but the supply company lacked salted egg yolks and eggs. Because Xiaoxing had been in the black market for many years, he knew the production situation in many places very well. Therefore, Xiaoxing negotiated first and asked Wu Qing to go to the designated place to get the goods. For this reason, the lack of cars became an important factor in limiting the development of the factory. The tractors in the village were mainly used for production, especially at this time. Yu Bing did not even dare to take the car out of the field for a long time. She had no choice but to ask Mr. Bai for help again. "Hello, Mr. Bai." Yu Bing knocked on the door. When she saw Mr. Bai looking over, she immediately put on her brightest smile. When begging people, one's attitude was very important. Mr. Bai glanced at Yu Bing and teased, "I heard that Delicious Food Factory has produced new products again. Recently, the most popular foods in the county has been your factory's products." Yu Bing sat on the chair opposite Mr. Bai and said with a smile, "It's all right. I brought a few products for you to try." With that, she took out the latest 3 products from her bag and placed them on the table. Mr. Bai glanced at the food on the table and swallowed hard. Last time, his wife had bought some, but he had only eaten 1 piece. Now that he thought about it, he wanted more. People in inland cities had never eaten these specialties from islands around the sea, so it was understandable for Mr. Bai to crave for more. However, Mr. Bai knew that Yu Bing's things were not easy to get. She probably had something to ask for again. He resisted the urge to eat it and looked up at Yu Bing as he said slowly, "Tell me, what's the matter this time?" Yu Bing did not want to be so direct. When she heard Mr. Bai expose her, she chuckled. "Mr. Bai, I knew my intentions wouldn't be able to escape your notice. It was never wrong to put in a good word for her first, especially when she needed help." However, Mr. Bai did not take the bait. He continued calmly, "Don't give me that. Hurry up and spill the beans." Yu Bing tapped the tip of her nose with her index finger and revealed a fawning smile. "Mr. Bai, our village can take eliminated transport vehicles in the county." When Mr. Bai heard that Yu Bing actually had designs on cars, he said angrily, "No, there's none." Yu Bing knew that big-ticket items had always been difficult to get. She did not have money. If she did, she would have gone to the car factory to buy a car. Yu Bing poured a glass of water for Mr. Bai ingratiatingly. "Don't be like this, Mr. Bai. It's not easy for us to operate an experimental unit." With that, she took out this list of orders from her bag. "Look, in order not to jeopardize the pilot project you personally approved, I specifically asked someone to get orders. There are orders from 3 City H supply companies. If it can be settled, we can supply it every week. There are also some county orders. The waffles are delivered every other day. I'm so busy that I really don't have no choice. Now that it's harvesting season, I don't dare to have any designs on the tractor in the village." Then, Yu Bing said with a long face, "If this continues, our factory will really have to travel at night in the future and carry poles to deliver goods. The county city is near, but if we go to the city to deliver goods, we'll really have to start leaving after dinner the day before." Yu Bing was playing the pity card, so she pinched her thigh under the table and looked at Mr. Bai with teary eyes. When Mr. Bai heard Yu Bing's words, he was in a dilemma. They had the ability to operate the experimental unit properly, but now that the market had been opened, they were stuck in transportation. He could not just ignore their problems. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 196 The Last Step. After thinking for a moment, Mr. Bai looked up at Yu Bing. "Yu Bing, it's not that I don't want to help, but the county's transport trucks are indeed tight now. A few days ago, the director of the DMV came to me and said that he wanted to apply to buy an extra one, but the government doesn't have money now." When Yu Bing saw Mr. Bai's expression, she guessed that what he said was true. She couldn't help but frown. If she had to cry to get what she wanted, so be it. "Mr. Bai, can't we get eliminated cars from other places?" In a dilemma, Mr. Bai glanced at Yu Bing and said, "It's very difficult. These are all important production tools. When there are obsolete cars in the city, every county will fight for them." Yu Bing really had no choice but to rely on Mr. Bai. Yu Bing put away her slightly flippant expression and looked at Mr. Bai solemnly. "Mr. Bai, the reason the village wants to sell to the Supply and Marketing Club now is to stabilize our food factory's sales market. I told you before that I want to make the food factory a regular year-round production factory, so can we have our own transport vehicle? This plays a key role in stabilizing our market." Mr. Bai pursed his lips and was silent for a moment. This experimental unit was very important, and Yu Bing had exceeded his expectations. Therefore, Mr. Bai knew that he had to think of a way to get the car. He couldn't screw up at the last step. "All right, you guys have already completed 99 steps. I'll take the last step." With Mr. Bai's promise, Yu Bing heaved a sigh of relief. She knew that cars were difficult to get, so she didn't dare to make any more requests. As long as she could drive it, it was fine. Mr. Bai was very efficient and got it done within 3 days. He had found an old comrade from the city government and settled it. The car's exterior was relatively damaged, but the internal parts were fine. Yu Bing knew a lot about repairing cars. After the repair, she knew that the old comrade Mr. Bai had found was very reliable. Such a car condition was considered very good among eliminated cars. After the repair, it wouldn't be a problem to use it for more than 10 years. Yu Bing thanked Mr. Bai repeatedly and took out the pickled vegetables she had marinated and small pastries to express her gratitude. Yu Bing drove back to the village happily. When the villagers saw the transport truck, they asked excitedly, "Mr. Yu, is this our village's car?" Yu Bing slowed the car down and replied with a smile, "Yes, this car will be used by our village's food factory in the future." "Yu Bing, you're so amazing. You even know how to drive such a big car. What's the big deal? Isn't it the same as a tractor? What do you know? Bicycles and tractors are also motors. Why don't people who know how to ride a bicycle know how to drive a tractor? They're different motors. They must have different driving methods. What's there to argue about? Pay attention." Someone looked at the villagers who were arguing about cars in disdain. "Then what should we pay attention to? What does having a car for the food factory mean? It means that the factory is doing well now. Didn't Yu Bing just recruit the second batch of workers a while ago? Now, she's driving a new car back. This means that the things produced by our food factory must be selling well now. In that case, they might be able to pay off the debt owed by the industrial chain this year and even give us some money. That's right, that's right. Miss Yu is really impressive. This factory has only been open for 2 months, but it has already reached this scale. Everyone started work with more motivation. Although they didn't become workers, the positive changes in the village due to the industrial chain made everyone admire Yu Bing's ability. When Yu Yan heard everyone's praise for Yu Bing, the jealousy in her heart began to spread again. As she watched Yu Bing leave, the corners of Yu Yan's mouth curled into an evil smile. Now that she was busy with work every day, she didn't have free time. However, soon, she would teach Yu Bing a lesson. It would be a thank you gift from her as a sister. After all, if not for her, her mother wouldn't have come to the countryside and she wouldn't have had the chance to see her mother so quickly. Yu Bing didn't know that she had been targeted by some nefarious people again. She parked the car in the factory warehouse excitedly. They didn't have the money to install a door at the entrance to the factory courtyard yet. Yu Bing was worried that someone would target this car. It wasn't easy for her to get this car. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 197 Long-term cooperation. There were goods and a large car in the warehouse now, so Yu Bing started a shift and arranged for the 7 male workers in the factory to take turns guarding it. This transport vehicle was considered a light truck. It was 6 meters long and could carry 6 tons of goods. It was enough for the current transportation requirements. However, only Yu Bing knew how to drive, so the heavy responsibility of transporting the goods fell on her. Considering that the factory was short of manpower, Yu Bing chose Wu Qing to go to the county's DMV to practice driving and get a permit. After the farming was done, the remaining people would go for training one after another. Yu Bing was confident that getting the light truck was only the beginning. She wanted to expand the factory and get an entire convoy. The production in the factory went smoothly. Although a batch of waffles had to be supplied every other day, they were only supplied to the county city at the moment. This was because after Yu Bing thought about it again and again, for safety reasons, she felt that it was better to wait until she obtained the orders from the unit in City Z and the supply company before starting to restore the supply for Shaoxing's side. At that time, as long as everyone took 2 hours off work the day before the supply, they could finish making waffles. After 5 days, the food factory had prepared all the goods requested by City H's supply company. Yu Bing and Feng Kai drove the goods to their destination. Yu Bing arrived at the first supply company. The person in charge, President Sun, was a woman in her 50s. She had short hair that reached her ears and a pair of thin black-framed glasses. The wrinkles on her forehead could be vaguely seen. When she saw Yu Bing, she was a little surprised. She didn't expect the person in charge of the food factory to be such a young lady. After the two of them greeted each other, She arranged for the employees to start unloading the goods. Yu Bing glanced at Shi and took out a bamboo basket from the driver's seat. Then, Yu Bing walked towards Shi and said with a smile, "President Sun, this is a sample we gave away for free. Because it's a new variety, not many people know about it. You can use a plate to cut the sample into small pieces for everyone to try before deciding whether to buy it or not." Shi glanced at the food in the bamboo basket, but was in no hurry to take it. Shi looked up at Yu Bing and asked, "Do the other supply and marketing clubs have it?" At first glance, Yu Bing could tell that Shi was an extremely attentive woman. Moreover, she was very upright. Such a person hated special treatment and cherished her reputation the most. Hence, she replied seriously, "Yes, this is our factory's sales strategy. After all, consumers' money is all hard-earned, so we wanted to send some samples to the supply company to hold some sampling activities." She had worked with so many manufacturers before, but this was the first time she had seen someone as generous as Yu Bing. However, this wasn't foolish generosity. The value of these foods was insignificant compared to the benefits she would obtain after opening the market. She originally looked down on Yu Bing since she was young, but now, because of this action, her impression of Yu Bing changed. She reached out and handed the list to the chief of the sales department behind her. Then, she began to arrange work seriously. As the factory director said, "Arrange for the sampling." The chief of the sales department immediately agreed. She glanced at Yu Bing, who was half a head shorter than her. Up until now, she remained confident and calm. She was much more mature than people her age. She couldn't help but think of her younger self. The expression on her face softened a little as she said calmly, "Miss Yu, you're very confident in your products." Yu Bing smiled confidently and said, "I should have confidence." After sending products to this place, Yu Bing said the same thing to the 2 remaining companies. Yu Bing wasn't afraid that no one would buy her products, but she was afraid that others wouldn't dare to try these new varieties and that it would delay the speed at which she opened the market. 2 days later, someone called the village committee's office. "Hello, He Mountain Brigade's village committee." It was Mr. Wei who answered the phone. "Hello, I'm from City H's Anjian Road Supply and Marketing Club. I'm the person in charge of the sales department. My surname is Liao." A young man's voice sounded on the phone. When Mr. Wei heard that he was a customer of the factory, he immediately greeted him warmly. "Hello, Mr. Liao. I'm the accountant of the factory. Do you need to place an order?" "Yes, we want to discuss a long-term cooperation." Mr. Wei smiled from ear to ear when he heard this. "All right, please wait a moment. What's your current number? I'll get our section chief, Mr. Fong, to call back later." The other party gave Mr. Wei a number and agreed to call back in half an hour. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 198 sign up. Mr. Wei swept all the ledgers on the table into the drawer. After locking them, he immediately ran to the factory. When Yu Bing found out that the 3 supply and marketing clubs were going to discuss long-term cooperation, she was also overjoyed. This was a provincial capital city. Previously, she felt that her products would definitely enter the market, but having it come true felt completely different. Yu Bing felt that the fact that she could get feedback so quickly this time definitely had something to do with them sampling the food. She decided to follow this strategy every time she went to new customers in the future. After all, how could there be no bait when one was trying to fish? When Fong Kai heard that they were going to discuss a long-term collaboration, he was very nervous. Usually, sales contracts were signed for a year. To the food factory, this was really a big order. Therefore, he was very worried that the other party would bargain too much. He was also afraid that he wouldn't be able to get the order if he insisted on not lowering the price, so he found Yu Bing and asked her to go with him. Yu Bing felt that Fong Kai simply lacked experience and wasn't incompetent, so she encouraged him. "How many orders have you obtained? You have to believe in yourself. If you weren't suitable, I would have replaced you and demoted you to an ordinary worker in the past few months." Although Yu Bing said this, Fong Kai was still a little nervous. These are all big clients. If the negotiation is successful, we can't stop production for the entire year. If the negotiation fails, I'll become a sinner in the factory. After saying that, he felt depressed again and said helplessly, "I'm worried that I can't get it done." "How can you be so confident?" Yu Bing burst out laughing. She actually understood Fong Kai's thoughts. She was the same when she first went to negotiate with a big client. "Isn't my confidence in you a good thing? This is the first time, so it's normal that you're nervous. Just show your usual performance. Besides, is it that you don't have confidence in yourself or our products?" The year-end bonus of the Supply and Marketing Club is related to their performance. They also hope to get these popular products from our factory. Otherwise, if other supply and marketing clubs have them but they don't, wouldn't they lose customers? When Fong Kai heard Yu Bing's words, he thought about it and felt that it made sense. There were a total of 5 supply and marketing clubs in City H. Fong Kai had also been to the other 2. However, when the other party heard that it was an unknown rural food factory, they rejected Fong Kai without even giving him a chance to taste it. Now, the reputation of these 2 snacks was slowly spreading in the city, so they found out about the He Mountain Brigade's number from somewhere and called. The person who answered the call was still Mr. Wei. Because Fong Kai had already set off for the city, after knowing that the other party also wanted to discuss cooperation, Mr. Wei hurriedly called Yu Bing over. In an era where transportation and communication were inconvenient, Yu Bing couldn't contact Fong Kai, so she could only give him Fong Kai's home address. Seeing this situation, Yu Bing decided to hire a full-time accountant. Otherwise, it wasn't a good idea to keep making Mr. Wei run from the village committee to the factory. With more and more things to do, she felt that the white hair on Mr. Wei's head was increasing. Moreover, the better the business in the factory, the larger the number would become, and the accounts would be more difficult to match. She had to find an accountant who specialized in managing the accounts in the factory. After Yu Bing discussed it with Mr. Wei, she decided to start recruiting. While the factory wasn't busy yet, Mr. Wei had time to help train new workers. Because she was only recruiting one person, Yu Bing didn't post any more notices. Instead, she chose to let Wu Jin broadcast it directly in the village. This time, the requirement was that they had to have high school level education. However, not many people in the village had graduated from high school. Even among the intellectuals, only more than half of them had completed all their high school studies. It was unknown if their grades were good. The position of finance manager was very important. One had to be able to write and calculate. One had to be level-headed, meticulous, and strict. One had to be responsible and couldn't embezzle. Yu Bing decided to expand the scope to include a few other villages in the Fengtu Mountain Commune. She had to find a person truly suitable for the position. Otherwise, she could only tire Mr. Wei out for a while longer. Because it involved other villages, the registration time was extended to 5 days this time. Mom, I'm going to the mountain to collect firewood. A woman with gray hair and a weathered face said to an old lady who was lying down and smoking leisurely. The old lady agreed. Then, the woman carried a bamboo basket and walked out the door. Today was her day off, and it was also the last day of registration for the accounting post of the E Mountain Brigade's food factory. After the woman left, she went straight to the E Mountain Brigade. Seeing that Jiang Chun was about to get up and leave, she hurriedly ran forward and asked anxiously, "Hello, is it too late for me to sign up now?" Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 199. I want to schedule class. Jiang Chun glanced at the woman and felt that she was almost 40 years old. However, she could still tell that she must have been a beauty when she was young. Unfortunately, she seemed very haggard now. However, her eyes were looking at her with eagerness. Jiang Chun couldn't bear to see her like this and replied, "Hello, there's still time, but the age limit is 32 years old. I'm afraid you're a little too old." The woman was stunned. Then, she forced a stiff smile as she looked at Jiang Chun. "I'm 30 years old this year." When Jiang Chun heard this, she wished she could find a hole to hide in. She said awkwardly, "I'm sorry, my eyesight isn't good." With that, she hurriedly handed over a registration form. The woman lowered her eyes and shook her head with a smile. After taking the form, she placed the basket aside and sat on the stool to pick up a fountain pen. She froze for a few seconds before starting to write. It had been 10 years already. She could no longer remember the feeling of holding a pen. Only after writing 2 words did she regain her memories and started writing smoothly. When Jiang Chun saw the woman sitting upright and writing, she suddenly felt that she seemed elegant and refined at this moment. She looked like the lady on an antique vase she had seen at her grandparents' house when she was young. She no longer seemed like the woman with the weathered face from before. At this moment, Yu Bing came out of the factory and saw the woman at the registration office. Her eyes widened slightly. 1 China euro. After the woman handed the registration form to Jiang Chun, she stood up and left the factory with a calm expression. Yu Bing walked forward and glanced at the words on the registration form. The words looked elegant, and one could see the writer's personality from the handwriting. When Jiang Chun turned around and saw Yu Bing, she couldn't help but sigh with marvel. She's one of the first batches of intellectuals to come to the countryside, and she's from the capital. Her handwriting is so beautiful. Yu Bing nodded. Yes, her handwriting was really beautiful. Thinking of her future, Yu Bing felt a little melancholic. She felt sorrowful for Wen Qin and for the young man who had saved her life. At this moment, Yu Bing suddenly wanted to hire Wen Qin directly. However, when she thought of her identity, she felt that she might not be helping her but harming her by doing this. Forget it, she would take it one step at a time. The registration ended. Although there was only one position, there were still many people who came to sign up. In the end, 128 came. It was quite cutthroat. On the other side, people began to sign up for classes. There were only a few topics that they could hold classes on. If others came up with them first, the intellectual would have to think of different topics. However, when teaching students who didn't have any learning experience, they had to investigate the types of knowledge the villagers needed first and learn the textbooks to make lesson plans, so that the villagers could really learn them. Therefore, no one came to report to Yu Bing even after a long time. Yu Bing never expected that the first person to sign up would be Yu Yan. Yu Yan found Yu Bing in the factory's office. Yu Bing sat in the office while she had to do farm work all day long, so there was a hint of indignance in her tone as she said impatiently, "I want to schedule classes." Yu Bing was looking at the registration form for this batch. When she heard this, she didn't respond and continued to flip through it. Seeing this, Yu Yan couldn't help but raise her voice. "Yu Bing, I'm talking to you." This time, Yu Bing raised her head and looked at Yu Yan. "Oh, you were talking to me just now. I thought you were talking to the air, so I didn't disturb you." Yu Yan didn't even know how to greet others properly. Yu Bing wouldn't tolerate this. Yu Yan was about to flare up, but then she thought about it and suppressed her anger. She was still counting on Yu Bing to help her arrange her classes, so she forced a smile. "Yu Bing, I want to arrange classes." Yu Bing repeated, "You want to schedule classes?" "I think I said that it's not a matter of whether you want to or not, but whether your lesson plan can pass." Of course, Yu Yan remembered the class scheduling requirements. It was just that she didn't want to beg Yu Bing, but now, she had no choice but to endure it. She took a deep breath to suppress her anger before saying, "I've already prepared the lesson. I plan to teach them how to prevent pests from planting. I've already found the book. This is my lesson plan. With that, Yu Yin took out a notebook from her bag and placed it on the table. Yu Bing picked it up and flipped it open. She realized that it was clearly plagiarized. If the villagers asked a few questions, Yu Yin probably wouldn't be able to answer. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 200 Bringing the plan forward. Yu Bing raised her head and said to Yin, bring out the original book. I want to confirm if the lesson plan you gave me was summarized or copied. Yu Yin copied most of it, but there was a simple summary or two written at the end of every paragraph. Hence, she said confidently, I didn't bring the book. I summarized it. Moreover, what do you mean by copying? What I'm teaching is the contents of the book. If this is considered copying, why don't you just ask me to write a textbook myself? Yu Bing snorted. If you don't know how to write a lesson plan, ask other people. What's the difference between a lesson plan like yours and me reading it from the book? Who doesn't know how to read? If a teacher's role is only to read according to the book, then it's no different from letting a student self-study. Go back and prepare another lesson. The reason why students were students was that they didn't have enough knowledge. They could understand words, but they couldn't connect the dots. At this time, the teacher was like a converter. After understanding the obscure things in the book, the teacher would describe them in plain language. Yu Bing knew that Yu Yin just wanted to relax for a few days, but she had to be responsible for the villagers. She sincerely hoped that the villagers could benefit from this and improve their lives by increasing production. She also hoped that the intellectuals could take advantage of this opportunity to freshen up their knowledge and rest at least once a month. This was a win-win situation. Yu Yin didn't intend to look at other people's teaching plans and humbly ask for advice. She just assumed that Yu Bing was deliberately targeting her. When she saw Yu Bing reject her directly, she didn't intend to pretend anymore. She slapped the wooden table and shouted, Yu Bing, you're using your position to take revenge. Yu Bing smiled when she heard this. Seeing Yu Yan's exasperated expression, she teased, you think we enmity? I'm quite confused. Tell me, what grudge do you have against me? In Yu Yan's mind, Yu Bing should be played like a fool. Yu Bing owed her this. However, now, Yu Bing was toying with her. Although Yu Yan had never had the upper hand, Yu Bing's naked disdain made Yu Yan decide to bring the plan forward. Yu Yan didn't say anything else to Yu Bing. She took her notebook and glared at Yu Bing fiercely. The hatred in her eyes was obvious. Then, she turned around and left. As Yu Bing looked at Yu Yan's departing figure, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. Then, she returned to work. Because the written test was set for the day after tomorrow, Yu Bing had to finish the questions tonight. The accounting position was different from the other positions. Moreover, there was no specialized accounting course in the current full-time school. Almost all the new accountants were taught by the old accountants. Yu Bing couldn't come up with accounting questions from the future. She could only test the other party's meticulousness and overall learning ability when coming up with the test questions. The workers on duty at night would come to the factory at 8 o'clock. Because Yu Bing was worried about the goods and the car in the warehouse, she had been the one guarding the vacancies during the shift. The workers arrived at the factory at 8 o'clock on time, but because Yu Bing had yet to finish the questions, they stayed in the factory until 8:30. Yu Bing took out a fruit candy from her pocket and put it in her mouth. Then, she prepared to go home from the small path. There was a small path from the factory to the end of the village. This path could save Yu Bing half the time, so she chose to take a shortcut every time she returned home from the factory. Yu Yan had followed Yu Bing for a few days, so she naturally discovered this pattern. Usually, Yu Bing would come out of the factory at 8 o'clock sharp. Today, she was half an hour late, causing her to squat in the grass for a long time and be bitten by a few small insects. Yu Yan blamed all of this on Yu Bing. If she didn't have to get revenge on her, she wouldn't have suffered so much. At this moment, Yu Yan quietly followed behind Yu Bing. She wanted to push Yu Bing into the small pond she passed by when she was about to reach home. It was May, so the temperature was still a little cold at night. Yu Yan planned to let Yu Bing soak in cold water. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to their destination, Yu Yan secretly approached Yu Bing with a scarf around her head. At this moment, Yu Bing was still thinking about which questions she had to change and didn't notice that someone was following her. Yu Yan was also a little nervous. There were still 3 steps left. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step. Yu Yan's hand was already on Yu Bing's shoulder. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much.